Patrick, I feel like I just saw you, man.
You did.
We were on a trip of a lifetime, ladies and gentlemen. Credit goes to Pat. He pulled off an awesome trip for us, as he always does. But this one was pretty special. One in a place that's becoming is already near and dear to Pat's heart, but is becoming near and dear to mine. I won't steal his thunder. I want Pat to kick this off and kind of set the tone for what this meant for not only Pat and I, but then who we were able to influence, who we were able to help, and what's our intention going forward with some of this stuff. So Pat, without further ado, man, take it away. What were we up to? Where were we? Who were we helping? What should people know about?
Yeah, actually, so PATTRIE Productions, which Jared and I are the co-founders of, kicked off our involvement with Devil's Lake Tourism and our production as far as gathering content for future fishing reports. You can check those out at the North Dakota their website. You can check them out on their YouTube channel. You can check them out on PATTRIE Productions stuff because I'm sure that we'll be tagging them along with our personal avenues as well. So, between Jared Petrie and Pat Kalmerton pages and all that other good stuff. But what we wanted to do is to go out and gather content. Well, I've been going out there for 15 years. I've been pro staff with Susie Kenner and Devil's Lake Tourism and Chamber for a long time. And I've been out playing, and now that we have the opportunity to take it to the next level and to help promote to extended rate, if you will, we decided to set up a duck hunting trip. The way that it initially started was it was going to be a waterfowl trip because of the difference or the change of the rules, right? So a non-resident person going into North Dakota now has to choose what zones they're going to hunt. So the way that it breaks down is, let's say I want to go out and I want a waterfowl hunt, right? Ducks and geese. There are 6 different zones in the state of North Dakota, and you must choose what zone you're going to hunt as a non-resident, and you can only do that for 7 days. And then there's a second time period, so you can do 14 days in total being a non-resident. So the way that all works is, let's say if I was going out and I wanted to hunt the northeast quadrant or the northeast section of North Dakota, which is kind of the northeast section of the state above northeast part of just above Devil's Lake, and you can get up there and you can hunt that area for 7 days. And then after that, you have to choose what other zone you're going to hunt and when you're going to hunt it. But you have to choose 24 hours prior to when you want to hunt it. So let's say if we're going to go there, prime example, if we went there last week and we hunted that one zone, but we didn't signify or tell them what other zone that we're going to hunt, when we're going to hunt, you have to do that 24 hours prior to. But with us, it was different, right? So what we decided to do is, because we were only going to be there for less than 7 days, as a group. So when I say group, we also had Mike Clingan from Montana Imagery. He joined us as well, as far as a content producer and a hunter and a straight out good person, right? We got to know Mike, and he is an incredible, not only an incredible photographer, but an incredible person. And what we did was we decided we're going to go, for less than 7 days. So what we did was we chose two different sections, which you can do within the same 7 days. So instead of us splitting it up, we can choose, 2 different sections within 7 days, and it counts as our 14, right? It counts as both of our programs. So we stayed at Dakota Sunset Resort. So it was Dakota Sunset Resort. We stayed out on Highway 19 in Minnewacan, which is on the west side of Devil's Lake itself, right? So when we stayed there, we chose two zones, which one was the northeast and one was the north central, I believe. And those two zones were exact same distance from where we were staying. So we could go to the northeast or we could go to the southwest, and both of them were in the two different zones, but we were legal within our. It's confusing, but it's not confusing once you actually read into it.
And that's a great little plug for anyone that's listening to this that wants to do this too. If you need help, like Pat's been out there for years, he's on top of the rules. Admittedly, I added no value to the rule game. I just followed along, but it can be confusing. And when you log into some of the websites or you talk to some of the guides, you might hear different stories. So, like Pat said, slow down, have trusted resources. There is a single source of truth, but if you're strategic and you play it out, you can actually put together some good options to maximize your time and effort out there.
Absolutely. This last week, by staying over at Dakota Sunrise, and I'm telling you what, Sean rolled out the red carpet for us. It was one of them where we went up to the Northeast and we actually got to hunt with my brother and my nephew and my brother's son-in-law, Josh, and they were invited up by one of our captains over in Wisconsin. Dan Nett is his name, and they were gracious enough. We were running late coming in the very first day. Dan called me. He's like, "Where are you at?" I'm running late. I'm pedaling as fast as I can. He said, "We have a banger field. Why don't you come up and join us?" Perfect. So the zone that he was in, we drove about an hour and 20, hour and a half from our resort the first morning, joined up with their group, had a fantastic hunt. It was awesome. We and we'll get into the details later, but just a prime example of the two different zones, right? It's not that hard once you actually start looking into it. If you go to the North Dakota Game and Fish website, it lays out all of the rules, all the regulations. They got maps that are clearly defined on what sections they are, how the whole process works. And we were lucky enough that where we went up and beyond and we bought all the tags. We bought the waterfowl tag. We bought the crane tag just in case we saw a crane. We bought the pheasant tags because of the pheasant population is booming out north, in North Dakota. We bought our fishing license because the fishing, we didn't have a boat, but the fishing from shore was fantastic. And, if we did happen to harvest our birds right away in the morning and get lucky enough to have a stellar hunt, the rest of the day, which we had a couple of days where we went pheasant hunting and we went shore fishing. And just to have that ability and that capability is to do so, it was a trip of a lifetime, really. I mean, honestly,
It really was.
the people, I take it for granted because I've been out there for so many times. But Jared, tell your experience. This was your first time.
I mean, you're nailing it, Pat. I've had this talk with other buddies, and now we've started having these talks, not only just for our own love of the outdoors and doing this, but obviously finding ways to support our clients and capture the content we need to advocate for these sports and push brands and products. But like these multi-sport, multi-species destinations, especially, there's not too many pockets that support. There's so many things that go into it, right? Like, do you even have the land or the resources for it? Are the seasons lining up? How does the local DNR and regulations, and how does even the local community support it, right? And that list goes on, but like, man, where you can go for a couple of days and you can tackle all those things that Pat just mentioned, and the most you'd have to drive is maybe an hour. Like, that's insane. I'd love to hear if other people have those experiences in those locations, because you get that at Devil's Lake. So like you said, you're done at 11 in the morning, you can go get lunch, and by the afternoon you're out hunting something else completely different, or you're fishing. Like, I think that's, not only as a content creator, but as an outdoorsman, like that is a dream come true. Like, you are maximizing your dollar, you are maximizing your time and energy. You go back home feeling, it was cool just to go waterfowl hunting. And I get to do all these other things too. Like, it was so much, makes the trip so much cooler. So like I want to give a plug in too, in addition to their DNR's website, something else I found incredibly helpful, someone for me trying to assist these guys who've been out there forever and navigating fields and what you're looking for and all that stuff. As someone who doesn't have that experience with waterfowl hunting, looking for the right land was Onyx. And we were using Elite just so you had access to all the right filters and the land. But being able to see what properties were posted electronically and match those up with physical postings to make sure you weren't violating anyone's land rights or access issues was incredibly helpful. So shout out to Onyx for kind of being a second metric, if you will, to gauge if we were legal or not.
Oh,
I don't know if
it's
you had anything you want to add to that, but it was a good experience, like just getting that validation you needed quickly.
yeah, no, not even I. The Onyx hunt is something that I have been living by, for years, and that's been a staple of my arsenal. I mean, it's probably it is by far the number one hunting tool that I use because you can get in there. I mean, if you're a deer hunter, you can get into the wind direction, even waterfowl, because these ducks and geese are going to land into the wind, and you're going to have to put your spread out or your decoys out exactly to the fact that they're going to have an opening right in the middle of that where they want to land, where you're going to put your blinds, and to be able to use that and know exactly how the wind direction is going, the landowners, like you're saying, the boundary line, so you're not putting yourself into the predicament of getting yourself into trouble. But not only that, but they also have the Onyx fish now. And a lot of the different states that have the contour and all that, I've been utilizing and implementing that into my program as far as the structure and the contour and everything else within lakes. But this trip particular, we all leaned on Onyx, and it's amazing because could been 2.5 hours from the other groups that we were hunting with, and we were sharing pins and points, and you can put the pictures in there for, hey, there's a moose over here, so I'm sharing the pin to the guys over where I had a pocket of ducks, and it was a posted piece of property, so I could not hunt that piece of property, but there was a moose on the same sheet water as the mallards and the pintails, which was really cool for a guy from Wisconsin. You never think that you're going to see a moose on such flat ground, but
Mm-mm.
the fact that I did
I thought he was
twice,
lying to us. Yeah.
yeah, twice. No, I got pictures to prove it. Otherwise, these guys would have guaranteed called me a liar. So
Yeah.
but I'm glad that you threw that out there because if you are going out there, um, you'd need to be able to know because out in North Dakota, it's a posted land, right? Anything that is not posted, either electronically or physically, is something that is open to the public. And you need to make sure that you are legal. That is your responsibility as a sportsman, as a person that is out there doing spending the time to do that. And the worst thing that you can do is put yourself in the position to get yourself in trouble when it's supposed to be an enjoyable trip. So
Hmm.
for minimal money that you have, there's promotions all over the place. I mean, honestly, it's just one of them. Even going back, I know that even Relevant has a 3-month free subscription for Onyx Elite if you buy a pair of sunglasses. They have partnerships all over the place where you can get these and add value to something that you're already looking for. So do yourself justice and make sure that you're covered there.
Yeah. I'm not sponsored by Onyx, but like I had the pro level and I'm like, what are these guys seeing? And I'm like, and I remember you hooked me up. There's a code for the elite program. And I was like, getting the extra filters for even like cell coverage, wind, temperature, precipitation, the land boundaries in a state that you don't normally hunt, like it's worth a couple extra dollars. It made it arguably like it's not enjoyable if you don't know if you're on safe land and you're pushing the limits of something. Like it's not worth it. You could get in so much trouble with the landowner or with their DNR and stuff. So like it's a just peace of mind to you can actually once you're set up enjoy the hunt. And then I guess the last thing I'll say too is like the names you dropped, Mike and Sean and some of these other contributors that were able to help get us up on things faster or share their resources. Not only is Mike famous in this industry for his photography, but like he had a 20-foot trailer loaded with a preset A-frame, hundreds of different species, like decoys that matched the species. Everything was kind of like this modular in and out experience where you could like pull things out of the trailer with, uh, I would assume, for the size of operation he has, relatively quick setup. And it was just a good experience. Like you had your stuff along, but we didn't even have to touch your decoys or anything. So like part of that is so Mike can set up and get the shot he wants, but it just added to the overall experience of having nice stuff that looks good, stuff that works. People willing to chip in and share. You know, Sean with the resorts and helping us get connected with people, and heck, even taking us pheasant hunting. And speaking of photos, his little heart eye patch that he used, you'll have to check that out below.
Yeah, you
Had to
better
get
put
that
that
in
in
there.
there because it is the iPad famous. Sean has become. There is going to be. I mean, we are. Matter of fact, if you want to get those patches, you can go over to our e-commerce and pick those up because we will have them on there for
Yep.
sure.
Yep, they're
But
going on T-shirts. It's becoming a thing.
yeah, but going back to Sean, for years, Sean and Linda, they are the owners and things over at Dakota Sunset Resort. And I'm going to be honest with you. Every time I drove past, they have 4 cabins. It's out in the middle of nowhere. I was always trying to figure out a perfect opportunity to work them into because they're great people, right? And I've always been fishing, I've always been hunting out there, but it's one of them where you never know until you do, right?
Yep.
And this trip lined up perfectly where we could finally open the door to one of their cabins. And I will tell you, when I walked in, I knew that it's going to be a second home to me every time I go that direction, or a lot of times when I go that direction. And the reason that I say that, now I've stayed at Woodland and it's a beautiful resort. It has a restaurant right there. I'm not saying that I'm never going to stay at these other areas either.
We went and ate at the restaurant. You know,
Yeah,
we had our ducks
absolutely.
clean there, you know?
Absolutely. I've stayed over at the Sleep Inn in town. I've stayed at the Cobblestone. I mean, I've stayed at East Bay. I mean, almost every establishment over there, and there's advantages and disadvantages to each one of them, right? So, like the hotels in town, they have the heated dog kennels and they have the bird cleaning stations and all that stuff. And then you got Woodland Resort that has everything there when you're fishing in bigger groups and this and that. But when I walked into Dakota Sunset, and I can honestly tell you that the the situation for the group that we had 3 of us. We had a 3-bedroom cabin. There's enough beds there to sleep 6 people comfortably. You know, they had the stove, they had the microwave, they had a coffee pot, they have the
It was a
fridge and stuff
full-size
like that.
kitchen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a full-size kitchen. They had 2 nice couches for us to relax on. The dog can come into the kennel. There was enough room for our rigs as far as 2 trucks and 20-foot trailers outside of outside of our cabin. It was very warm, very
Good
cozy.
internet speed for getting
Oh
those
yeah,
photos
I
out.
mean, just the things that we needed as that group and all the equipment that we had to be able to plug in to do this. No stairs, no elevators. Um, you walk in the back door, the front door, whatever. There was a bath and a half. It was perfect for what we were doing, and not only that, but as the week went on, right? As the week went on, I actually liked it even more because of the positioning of this location, right? So it's right next to a bunch of boat ramps if I had a boat. It's right next to bridges if I wanted to fish off of the bridges. It's about the same distance going to Woodland as if it was coming from town to Woodland. And we went there for dinner and drinks, and we had our birds cleaned over. Tanner and the crew over at Woodland Resort cleaned all of our birds for us, so we didn't have to. No, it sounds lazy, but honestly, when you go there, you drop off the birds, you go get something to eat, you have a drink, you come out, they're froze, they're labeled, everything is legit for travel. They have a wing on them, everything is ideal and perfect. And then you go back out to Dakota Sunset, and there's no banging the doors from other hotel rooms. There's no, because we were running it hard. We were only getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, if that. And it was quiet. You could hear the coyotes out in the distance. The geese and the ducks were flying up over the top and landing in the fields. right next to us. I think we saw some Huns actually on the property when we were going. We had a lot of deer. It was just for this application, it was perfect. I definitely will use Dakota Sunset again for sure, hands down, 100%. You're gonna
I
say
agree.
something? Go ahead.
No, like you said, it was just the right size group. Even though there's three of us, like small groups of friends, families, like it's the perfect setup. Like the awnings for the Passover, like some people staying there when we were there had boats, others were other waterfowl hunters. Like it accommodated everything. Um, it was like I said, back to the conveniency too. Like man, you were not that far from town, which was important. We had stuff we had to do in the city, and then we had both locations were opposite directions, so we were arguably right in the middle. Now it's not always going to work out that way, but for knowing what land is available, which should we go back and do that again, which I really hope we get to.
Oh, we're
Yeah,
going to.
why
Yeah,
wouldn't you
we're
stay in the
going.
middle? Like, so now I gotta if I'm on one of these opposite ends, and now I gotta drive twice as far to go back to that safe acreage that we found and already mapped out. Where our pins are. I'd rather be in the middle of all that because when you're out in these very spread out locations, like nothing's a short drive if you're trying to get
Oh,
someplace quick.
nothing's a short drive. It's not like it's a deer that's sitting in a plot of woods. I mean, these are birds. They fly, So you're in one field, and when you gun that field, now you have to find another field for the next day, and another field for the next
Right,
day, and another
right.
field for the next day. And what was really awesome is the different terrain that we found, right? So the north, when we were up to the north, we found a lot of birds. We did really well. I mean, it was our best, shooting day that we had that,
Hmm.
the first day. And we ended up really, really cleaning house on some birds, and the terrain was flat. There was a lot of water. We were in a section that had a lot of different pockets and potholes and sheet water on the fields and everything else. And then the second day, because we had the two different zones, we found ourselves in a little bit hillier, a little bit grassier area where there was not as many birds, but they're more concentrated as far as what pockets and what potholes that they were sitting in. But the advantage of that was matter of fact, as we were pheasant hunting the afternoon, we found the field for the next morning
We
while we
did,
were
yeah.
pheasant hunting because all the birds were piling into the field right next to where we were pheasant hunting. We're like, yes, this is awesome. We went pheasant hunting in the afternoon instead of scouting. It ended up being the field right next door to where we were pheasant hunting, shooting roosters, where all the ducks and the geese were piling. And that's where the patches came in. Man, that right there is where we learned all about the patch.
Patches O'Houlihan.
Oh, patches a hoolan, Sean.
It's crazy when you're pheasant hunting, and it's hard to focus on pheasant hunting because you can't help but notice the hundreds, if not thousands, of geese and other birds flying into the field next to you. Like that's what we experienced. So like it's absolutely insane. Like and I know that's not what's going to happen every time you go, but what a cool thing to experience. That's what the potential to experience is. As someone who has done a lot of pheasant hunting, but little to no waterfowl hunting, like that was what I walked into. Like I'll never forget that as a core memory. Like that was fantastic.
I will be so this trip between the weather, right? We had a whole mix of weather. We had high 60s when we got there with sun. Then it dropped to the 40s with 30 to 50-mile-an-hour winds. And then we had a little bit of rain at the end. But I can honestly tell you that this year is the very first year that I can ever remember straight up that I came home with my possession of mallards or my possession of my ducks and geese, right? Not geese, but I had my possession limit of ducks, which is 3 times the daily bag limit, and it is 6 ducks per person, which is 5 mallards, only two of which may be hens, and then an odd duck. So we had a lot of pintails. There's a lot of pintails out there where this year you're actually allowed to harvest 3 pintails, which is way higher than it ever has been, for as long as I can remember. There's a lot of green winged teal that are hanging out. There's a lot of widgeon that are hanging out. I've seen some gadwall out there. It was awesome. You know, the last day that we were there with all the high winds, there were a lot of snows that were moving through up high. There were
Mm-hmm.
mallards piling into the, so when we were leaving, it was only getting better. And it's only going to get better moving forward. I talked to another group on our way home that I talked to that we saw at the steakhouse the night before, and they were done in 40 minutes. I mean, the hunting is that good right now, where it's mind blowing on how where going back to exactly what you said, Jared. Where else can you go where you can shoot ducks in the morning, shoot pheasants in the afternoon, go shore fishing and get walleyes in the evening for 3 days straight, have somebody else clean your ducks and geese and fish if you choose. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to, you can do it yourself. But
Yep.
we literally walked to or drove to Woodland, handed our birds off, gave them our licenses, so everything was legal. They had them cleaned up for us. We went and had dinner and a few drinks and talked about the next day. Went back, recharged our batteries, fed our dog, sat on the couch, petting the dog, watching the Brewers play. Here we go for the next day. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was, in my opinion, it was probably one of the best trips I've ever been on because of the accommodations, the camaraderie that amongst the people that I was with, the food aspect of the local establishments being either Woodland or the ranch or
Ranch,
you
yeah.
know, Wisco Meats, they sent a bunch of meat for us to enjoy. Cedar, Silver Springs, I mean, we can't say enough about that beer and bratwurst mustard that you guys were inhaling. Matter of fact, Mike stole
Dude,
it when he left.
I
Oh,
was
we
all
did.
about the
It
the
was
dill
gone.
pickle the dill pickle mustard was mine.
Yeah, so I mean, Silver Springs, that horseradish mustard and everything else on our sandwiches. If you go back to look at our posts and your posts and Devil's Lake posts and everything else while we're out there, you're gonna. But enough about me rambling on.
Well,
This was your this was your
let's
first combined trip out there.
yeah. Mhm.
Give us
I'd only
your
been out there
rundown.
once before, and that was with you on in a Glow Media Day type thing, and it was more fishing focused. So this was as someone who gets to capture a lot of content, you just never know what you're walking into. So you always be prepared, whether that's outdoor gear, my camera gear, and you know, to be honest, I wouldn't probably change much because like you just kind of always want to be ready for what nature throws at you or what a client throws at you. Um, and just being able to capture whatever that is, right? Whether it's the species you're targeting or if it's the content you're targeting. But for me personally, I mean, I've grown up around waterfowl hunters my whole life. I just never really got into it. I worked on a pheasant game farm, River Wildlife. It was like a high school college job. Loved it. I love trap shooting. These things are that's probably the closest I've been to getting into that space. So like also when you get to go do this and you're filming, like yeah, there's a steep learning curve, and I love challenges like that. Shooting a duck is significantly different in how you go about doing it. Yeah, you got to lead something, but like a duck performs significantly differently than a pheasant does, both in speed and agility, right? So like you got to training yourself on how to compensate for such a thing is fun. Like training yourself to not move when you're in an A-frame with day one, what we have 13, 14 people in a 40-foot long A-frame, and then it worked your way down to just three of us by the last day. Not that you would change your movement or your strategy, but like the experience of even hunting in an A-frame and the strategy of why you'd set up decoys, the type of decoys and where you're placing them and what you're looking for, where you're going to place them once you even identify a field. Like the amount of knowledge transfer that both you and Mike and even Dan and his crew on day one, right, that I was able to absorb as just as someone who likes the outdoors and likes that style of hunting and always wanted to do it, was awesome. Like, and that's not going to be what everyone gets exposure to, but like we've said this before with fishing, I'm going to say it too with hunting. If you don't have access to a Mike or a Pat, find a local guide. You can
Exactly.
go to visit devilsLakeND.com. They have guides for any sport out there, and if you don't know, like there's people that you can call like to validate where they're at. A lot of the resorts you stay at have connections to guides. Not only should they have access to land that you might not be able to find on your own using the techniques and tactics and tools that we talked about earlier, it just makes it so much better, especially if you don't have a lot of your own resources. If you're just rolling in with camo and a firearm, they can help pick up that slack for you and just make it that much better of an experience. It's worth it. I think a lot of people question maybe cost or the energy invested up front to find it. I think it's worth it. That's essentially what I got to experience with hanging out with you guys. So yeah, I'm a little spoiled, but if you strip away like the content aspect of it, that's 100% what it would be. And now that I'm getting exposure to that, like, man, it just makes it so much more enjoyable. Like, it's fun being out there. Like, people will hear me say, like, if I can get off behind the computer, even just to sit in a tree stand for an afternoon and recharge my mental batteries, I'm down with that. But like being able to like limit out on ducks and kind of just all the energy and all the excitement tied to that, and it's controlled chaos, right? Like, you're obviously practicing safety rules and regulations with both firearms and land access rights and stuff like that. But when those ducks fly in and they're coming from every direction and they're different species, different heights, and you've got that many people that are all trying to coordinate together, like, man, there's an energy that you can't recreate doing anything else. And that is something that anyone who's interested in this, whether you've done it before and you're a veteran like Pat or Mike, or someone like me who's starting out, like, well, look at you. You've been doing it for what, decades, and you still get jazzed about it. Like, so
there's something about a flock of mallards or a flock of pennies that are coming in and they're committed and they're, you have to choose on when to go and when not to go. There's definitely a true passion that makes my blood boil with waterfowl hunting. There truly is, and I hope that my kids experience the same things growing up as I did. To make sure that they have that future, right? That it's not even so much. Yes, I'm worried about different kids and different people, the future of it, but I'm more concerned. I'm going to be very selfish here. I'm going to be more concerned about my own kids. My older kids got to experience it. Now my younger kids, I want to experience it as well and let them make a decision, because once they do it and once they have that opportunity and they are part of that, there's no way that you can't like it. I mean, it's just there's something about watching a good dog work. There's something about listening to a person on a call that's good at calling. There's something about just spending time in the blind with people that you choose to be there. It's not like you're at work and you have to be next to the person in the cubicle next to you listening to their phone calls. You're choosing to be there and you're choosing to spend that time in the elements, in the outdoors, exerting your, because it is tiring. It's
mm-hmm.
mentally and physically, emotionally tiring and trying. And, you miss a duck and you have to rebound the very next one when they're coming in because they're already coming in, or
Yeah.
you have to, adjust that lead. And the thing about all of it, and you hit it spot on, is I am lucky enough that I have had the tutelage of my father and tutelage of other people growing through and being able to hunt with the best there are within the sport itself. And I am lucky enough to be able to pass that on to some, but majority of the people I'll never be able to meet. That's just reality of life. But there are hundreds and thousands of guides out there that are exactly the same person as I am that want to do that. And people, when you were saying that they can go to the devilslakend.com and find those people to take them hunting, fishing, whatever the case may be, and choose to pick their guide and to call them all, and they wouldn't be on there if they're not quality, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you
Yep.
can't really go wrong. If you need any recommendations, give us a holler, shoot us a message. But I will tell you that if you are going out there and if you are looking for two different areas and walleye fishing and pheasant hunting and all that other good stuff, this time we stayed at Dakota Sunset Resort, and it dealt us perfectly. But check out the guides. If you don't have the equipment, if you don't have what you need, then make darn sure that you put yourself in the best position to enjoy your trip at full. Because at the end of the day, you're already so here. Okay, now I'm gonna go off a little bit, right? Because it's one of them where
Please do.
hey, no, but it's not even going off. It's one of them where you spend all this time at work and you all this time have energy planning a trip and going through the motions and driving 10, 15 hours to a location to go, and your food, your travel, your licenses, your dog preparation, all the maintenance on your vehicles, all the planning and the logistics and all that stuff. Time is worth money, right? So I always look at time being worth money. I always my valuable time away from either my family, or if I'm lucky enough my family comes along, and work and everything else. Okay, so if I'm spending vacation and all that other good stuff, these are things that I've earned. You have tens of thousands of dollars stuck into this trip. Now you're going to save yourself $400 or $500 because you don't want to hire a guide. You want to go to save a couple of pennies by not putting yourself in the best position. And don't forget, these guides out there, they have access to the land that's posted that you can't hunt.
Right. And let's not if you're a seasoned waterfowl, there's probably a high statistical probability that you probably have some sort of hunting dog. But the guides do. Like if you don't have like me, if I have a pointer but I'm going waterfowl hunting and she's not trained for that, like the guides in some connection, whether they have it or they can get that, or bring a buddy along that has one, they'll take care of that for you. Which that's also a really cool experience, is watching a hunting dog do what it's been trained to do at a premium, a high functioning level. That's a sight to behold unto itself. Okay, you just shot all these birds and now you're watching this dog that's just loving life because you shot that bird. Now it gets to do what it does best. So it's just little victory after little victory after little victory adds up, and then you get to enjoy all of that. And like you said, if you're someone who, like most of us these days, that sits behind a desk, all you're doing is dreaming about going out there. Don't cut yourself short when you're that close to making a dream come true. Again, we get to tackle it a little differently, but our whole goal is to capture that and share that with people, to show them how it all comes together when they do all of the right things. When they put their time and their energy and they focus it in to a trip to go out to these places. Hopefully we make that experience a little easier, connecting resources, products, contacts with them. That's the goal. Otherwise, it's very easy to kind of get misled this day and age in a digital world, taking a wrong trip and then wasting those things, time, energy, and resources. So I think anything we can do to help spread that on our own channels, like Pat mentioned, he knows so many people and he's been doing this for so long across the country. When in doubt, if you don't know, don't hesitate to reach out. At the very least, he can get you in touch with someone. That doesn't, we should all not lose sight of the fact that we're trying to be advocates and help each other. It's still competitive, but you can still be friendly in the sense that we've had plenty of talks about that. It's like everyone says, yeah, we need more people, we need more hunters, we need more advocates for our sports and our industries. And then you'll still find those people that clamp up and don't want to share and talk about things. It's like, well, those contradict each other in the worst way. We're either helping or we're not helping. I get pretty worked up about that just because of how I'm getting back into the outdoor stuff. And it's like, man, if you're looking at things from a beginner's point of view, it's overwhelming. If you didn't have a dad, if you didn't have a mentor, if you haven't been doing it your whole life and you're something you always want to do and you're doing, and I think that's a lot of people, it's an untapped market that a lot of these brands get wrong. People that want to go do these things and they're not even being targeted in these marketing and efforts, and they have money to spend, but they are overwhelmed and don't even look at it because they don't even know how to get over that first hurdle. And so many people in our sports are kind of like, well, I'm only talking to the people that are already doing it because it's low hanging fruit. It's like, well, you're missing a huge chunk to make of the market to make an impact. So that's how I'm attacking everything, because it's what I can speak to. But that's why it's kind of cool to hear Mike's story, someone who's a passionate, veteran waterfowl hunter, someone like you who has experience in every industry in the outdoor space. And then someone like me who grew up doing it, got out of it, and I was trying to get back into it. And I'm seeing it with, fresh eyes, fresh mind, fresh perspective. You can tell the story from every angle. Everyone that we would go after or that we're trying to influence fits inside of that window somehow. which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, man, we could talk for hours on that experience, but I mean, the don't live through our experience. Experience it on your own because it's just something that if you enjoy all of it and you enjoy the fall weather, it's something you got to do.
Yeah. We're going to write a blog post, folks, to go along with this, and we're going to list a bunch of the brands and the people and the locations that we mentioned so that you can easily click and go explore more. On our website, we'll have the ability to reach out to us and get in touch with Pat if you want to have a one-on-one with him, or just ask him about some of these things more in detail. We'll try to do more of these to go further detail on specific things. We just want to get this up because it's relevant. We got to get it live, so this is kind of our kickoff call. We'll get this on social media. Pat said we got days worth of photos and videos that we're going to be chopping up. This is just our intro piece. There'll be more to.
Sounds good.
Cool. Thanks for your time, Pat. Thanks for taking me.
It was an awesome trip. I'm looking forward to it again. As a matter of fact, next time we'll be out there is in January, end of January for the Fireman's Picnic. So we're going to be out doing the. If you've never been
Dude.
there, here we go.
Oh,
That's a
dude.
good one. Look it up.
I'm so looking forward to that. Plus, we've got the core trailer. We've got the rugged e-bikes. We had those along this trip, but we'll take them along for those things too. So I hope they have a lot of other gear that we can haul in that trailer too for that trip